Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Or that white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
The Red Apple Media Podcast Network presents This is Protecting America. Now, here's Emmy-winning journalist Rita Cosby.
Welcome to another edition of Protecting America. I'm Rita Cosby. Elon Musk and his DOGE team from the Department of Government Efficiency have been discovering massive waste and fraud in our very bloated government. Yet resistance to Musk has been intensifying with massive protests outside Tesla dealerships across our nation, and even Musk himself receiving numerous death threats. Well, join us now to talk about this and more is Dr. Isaiah Hankel. He is a best-selling author and also the CEO of overqualified.com. Dr. Hankel, it's great to talk with you.
It's great to be here, Rita. Thanks for having me on.
What do you think of Elon Musk and his mission?
I think it's been phenomenal to see somebody who is arguably the most successful businessman in the United States be able to handle all of the projects and businesses that he's currently doing, but then be able to go in to the government for the benefit of the American people and take back their tax dollars. And not just take back their tax dollars in terms of what might happen in terms of, taxes being cut or maybe some sort of reimbursement, but to have those dollars go to things that the Americans want it to go to. So I think there's nothing nobler than that. And I love to just see it as a business owner myself from a sense of productivity and teaching the world that, yeah, you can go line by line through expenses and cut ones that don't make sense.
Is this really long overdue to have this kind of an assessment of the U.S. government?
Yes, very long overdue. I think the majority of the population, generations, I think, just always thought that something like this would never happen. I know there was a lot of talk about different types of DOGE-like departments being set up before and, budgets of being, quote unquote, balanced. But to actually go in and look specifically at Social Security numbers that are just fabricated, to look at grants and loans that are going nowhere and to expose that and to show, hey, the government is in large part nefarious. It is using your money for whatever it wants. It's hiding it. It's going nowhere. And to see this come out day after day after day, and to have the American people, not surprisingly, if you have common sense, be behind this and be furious at it and happy at the same time that these changes are being made. Yes, it's long overdue. And I don't think anybody ever thought it would actually happen.
Yeah, why do you think there was this sort of, it was always maybe a political talking point, like you said, but yet no one actually really implemented it? Why?
Well, look at what's happened over the past decade plus, getting a businessman like Trump into the Oval Office, and then having his connections to other businesses. And then I think it lent itself to business owners like Musk seeing I think there's a path forward here, and I think we need to do something because, businessmen, businesswomen, and people that work for a living have been at the mercy of people that just generally sit on committees, whether that's government officials, local councils. And I think the timing was right with everything that happened over the past 4 or 5 years with COVID. And you had a lot of people, myself included, realizing wait a sec, I'm at the mercy of not just these committees for the city, but also the committees for the counties and the states and federally. And unless I get involved, this is not going to change. I'm really not going to have a say. So I think that kind of happened collectively to a lot of business owners. And Musk is, the richest man in the world, the most successful business person of our lifetime. And to be able to have somebody like that go in and run the government like a business, or at least try to, and be making gains in that area, is something that a lot of different pieces had to come together to make it happen. And I think we're just seeing the beginning of it right now, really.
There was this sort of false narrative, if you will, that they were like all sort of, almost 20-somethings, the DOGE bros, if you will. And then we just saw recently some of the people that are on, the DOGE committee. Maybe there are some DOGE bros, but we definitely saw some others that put that to rest and give a different image. We saw someone who really is a rocket scientist. We saw somebody, who was the head of Airbnb. I mean, these look like extremely qualified, very well-intentioned individuals who said they really care about America. They care about this government. Has that also helped? And were you surprised to see, really, I think, some of the incredible credentials of those who were on that committee?
Not surprised at all. I mean, does anybody really think that Elon Musk doesn't have great connections? Do they really think that there's not highly intelligent people out there? I think maybe people that have never seen the power of what a small, focused group of highly intelligent individuals can do were surprised. But I think we're seeing the power of that. If you could have a lot of very highly intelligent people with a goal of making something efficient and effective together and looking at something. I think what's happened for so many years is that everything was kept so obscure on purpose. Everybody acted like it's too complex. And you see this with a lot of elitists, whether it's in higher education, government. Oh, you couldn't possibly understand. It's very complex. Like the money goes over here, but it takes care of this and it's saving lives. And nobody could ever define okay, but where is it actually going? And so you had people in that room that made businesses from scratch. You can't do that if you don't do everything exactly right according to the rules of logic and not according to the rules of virtue signaling.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
How does PwC take your company to the leading edge? They bring the sharpest minds in tech to your team, so you can bring the ideas that will transform your business. They're passionate about your industry, so you can walk into any room with every advantage. And they're with you every step of the way, so you can know you're headed in the right direction. PwC builds for what's next, so you can get there now. Get started at pwc.com/us/leading edge.
This episode is brought to you by Cadillac. When you have 4 new tires, every drive feels fresh. Right now, buy 3 select tires and get 1 for just $1 during the Cadillac Certified Service Fresh Start Tire event. Visit Cadillac.com/service offers or see dealer for full details. At participating U.S. GM dealers only. Highest or equal value tire will be $1. Offer ends 5/31/2025. Not available with other offers.
Yeah, that's a great point. And coming in, really just looking at it, analytically, is this correct? Is there any return on this? Is this, right. When we've heard, some of the things that even came out very early on, Dr. Hankel, were transgender surgeries for spiders and, Tijuana, I mean, I think anybody with half a brain would go, what the heck is that?
Yeah, and it was always, like you said, it was always kind of like a dog and pony show, right? In Congress, they bring in these big posters saying, look what we spent money on just to get people fired up, but nothing ever happened. And everybody always earmarked stuff for their own little pet projects or to kind of put some money over here for these crazy things. But to actually have something come out and say, oh, yeah, there's transgender experiments on mice and we just found out about it and now we cut it and that's gone and that grant is over. And then to see people that were working on these insane projects have their jobs go away is a good thing. because they can get jobs elsewhere. They can get jobs in the private sector. And I'm not making light of people that may have lost jobs, but if you're working on something that is reliant on American taxpayer money and you're acting like it's not, and you're not truly being a public servant, then you don't deserve to be in that position anyway.
That's a great point, because a lot of people, do you think, who were on the government payroll were used to having it? There are a lot of hard workers too, but there certainly were some who really kind of checked in. And of course, during COVID, there were a lot of them who stayed home and continued to stay home. I think one of the departments, it might have been EPA, Dr. Hankel, and maybe you know better than I do, where it came out, I think Lee Zeldin was saying that, I think it was like 6% were showing up. 5 days a week. I mean, how can you operate a business like that in this environment years after COVID?
Yeah, I think it was single digits for multiple government departments who were working from home years after COVID. Everybody else has to go back to work, but a lot of these people were in these very cushy positions, and they just kept proliferating like project manager and program manager positions that happened to be remote over and over and over again. And the typical salaries that I would see were about $140,000 or so for all of these positions. So many of them just sitting on committees, organizing things, telling people what to do, funneling this money, but nothing actually being produced. Like nothing actually being produced in so many of these different departments and with so many of these different people. But I think it's also about the arrogance and thinking that, hey, I deserve to be paid with taxpayer money and I don't need to be accountable to anyone. I mean, look what happened when he asked for 5 bullet points of what they did that week. That is the mentality. I don't need to answer to anyone, certainly not the American taxpayer who I think I'm smarter than. And so these people stopped becoming public servants a long time ago, and they thought they were like selected. They thought, these pseudo-intellectuals thought they were selected to get to decide like gods or many kings and queens where all this money was supposed to go without any accountability, without going through it and having anybody say, hey, wait a sec. Do we even want to pay for these kind of experiments? Do we even want to fund this strange thing in this country far, far away from us when we have people that have a lot of problems here, whether it's from, the hurricanes or homelessness or the all the health issues that are happening. And so I think this is a really good thing. And I just think that if we can get people to see the value of being public servants again, they'll be grateful for those jobs instead of arrogant about it and upset that they have to reply to an email or show up to an office.
What did you make, Dr. Hankel, of sort of a little bit of the different approach that we heard from President Trump than Musk? Because, Musk sort of was like, okay, we're taking a sledgehammer, and he came out famously with the chainsaw that he got from Argentina's president, the Argentine president Milei at CPAC. And then we heard from President Trump, no, we're going to use more of a scalpel, he said, than a hammer. Is that maybe the right approach, or are they sort of both same, end result, but maybe a different way to get there?
Yeah, I think it was mostly about optics. It's a great point, right? I mean, you come out with a chainsaw, and I'm all for that, but I can see that a lot of people would be like, well, wait a second, am I going to lose my benefits? And so when you're trying to get votes and you're trying to get people to buy in, that kind of branding and optics matters, and Trump's great at that. So I think if they start to get a sense from the certain, population demographics and so forth, it might make sense to kind of reframe that. I mean, for me, yeah, you want to make sure you're cutting the right things. I don't think Elon Musk was ever going in and cutting the wrong things, and that's why the reaction is so crazy to me that people have about finding fraud in Social Security or finding fraud in Medicare. Like these are payments that are going to people that don't even exist, and they can't even find the payments, and they're actually removing the codes for a lot of these payments. That was reported. So they purposely removing the codes, so they have no idea where any of this money even went, and it can't even be tracked anymore. So I think the mission has been very clear, right? What are the things that nobody wants to see being worked on, or very few people, certainly the general American public? Let's get rid of those. What are the things that are outright fraud, going nowhere, going to things that they weren't even supposed to go to, and even in many cases are against the law to go to? Let's cut those out, right? And so I think the messaging has been cleaner now, and people have seen that it's very, very transparent. They're posting it online, whether it's on X or other sites, all the different cuts that are being made. So I think it's been a scalpel since the very beginning.
Yeah, and maybe the, like you said, the messaging is more clear and more vocalizing and explaining to people. You know, one of the things you talked about, Social Security. It's been amazing what DOGE has discovered. I mean, they just came out recently and said they removed 7 million Social Security accounts belonging to people that are over 120 years old, who definitely, I guess, discovered the fountain of youth. And then you got DOGE also found through audits that the Social Security database, this is amazing, included 20 million dead people that were marked as alive. I mean, first of all, these are huge numbers. And what's the impact on American taxpayers, Dr. Hankel?
That money is going somewhere. So I think they need to be even more clear and say, these aren't Social Security accounts that just exist. These are Social Security accounts that are being sent money, or at least talk about specifically like how many of those were sent, how many different Social Security checks, and what is that doing to the system? What is that doing to like the conversation, the talking point is, you know, Social Security is only going to survive for another X number of years. Okay, well, that's only if the data is accurate, right? Garbage in, garbage out is a saying very often with dealing with data. So if all the data is wrong to the tune of 20 million, right, dead people, or 7 million, or millions of people that are not actually supposed to even be on the rolls, then do we really even have an accurate count of how long Social Security will last, or how much we have to fund, or how much people should be taxed to fund the current Social Security needs, right? So that's the point, is accuracy is what matters. Accuracy and precision. We need to know exactly what these numbers are so that we can make plans, and then we can not just balance the budget, but we can reduce taxes. I mean, the American workers right now are having a very hard time, not just because of inflation, but everything over the past 4 years that piled up. And so people are mad. They want to know, where is their money going? They can't, and it's not just because eggs were expensive. I know those prices have gone down and everything became more costly, but it's because we've been funding so much crap everywhere and things that don't actually exist. And so I think they need to make that point on the individual level. Like, the reason that you don't feel like you can get ahead is because your taxes are being taken from you to fund all of this stuff that doesn't matter. So if we can cut all of this stuff, we're not going to need to tax you as much.
Yeah.
And so as soon as those two dots can be connected, we'll be in a good place. You
know, that's a great point. Connect like what the benefit is, that we won't need to take in as much if we can justify that the spending is accurate, you know, and get rid of the ones that aren't. And in turn, you'll save X amount. So it really is like in everybody's pocketbook. I think they're getting more at that. Like, we've seen some of the cuts. We've seen, you know, Elon Musk talk about that. But I think that's a superb point. Now, listen, you also did, Dr. Hankel, also a big op-ed. It was in the Washington Times. And you talked about, I love the headline. It's Trump's disruption is exactly what NIH and higher education need. Explain why you think NIH in particular is important to have this disruption.
Well, I'm really happy that the new NIH director just got in. So I'm very hopeful, but it's been run horribly for a very long time with no oversight. And, you know, I mentioned pseudo-intellectuals before. There's the vast majority of those are in higher education, and especially in administration, whether it's at the way the former NIH was run. And what the problem is that there's no oversight in these very expensive grants. So a very popular grant that's kind of the grant of one of these researchers in academia where you feel like you've made it is called an R01 grant. And it's typically around, it could be, you know, between $1 and $2 million, a little bit over $2 million. And it's a grant that and many investigators, you know, at the top will have several of these, that money is supposed to be used for what is in the grant. The problem is that nobody checks to make sure the research or what they're using that money for is actually going towards that grant. In many cases, it's not. So what these researchers will do, just as one example of how this fraud exists, is they'll get a grant for something, even something they know is not going to go anywhere, but they've collected so much data that they tell a story and they get it past reviewers, which is just themselves, they're peer reviewing their own stuff. They get the grant and then they use that grant money to explore whatever else they want. Seriously, whatever else. They call it exploratory research. They don't have any oversight. Nobody comes in and checks to make sure they're using the money for the grant. This is supposed to be illegal and wrong. You're supposed to be able to be disbarred for this, but it never happens. They use that money for exploratory research, and then they get enough data for whatever that research is, get another grant, and then use that for whatever research and get another grant. And the comparison that I've been trying to make it to is like the SEC can go into any trading firm floor at any time and like just look around and check stuff, right, to see if there's any kind of fraudulent activities going on. And that's kind of some of the checks that we have for Wall Street as an example. But there's all this millions and billions of dollars of American taxpayer money, not just investor money, but American taxpayer money that's going towards this research that the NIH directs. And there's no oversight. Nobody walks into these labs or these institutions or these universities and says, okay, well, where's this money going towards? Like, what did you do today? What did this fund? Did you actually use the money for where it's supposed to go? So that's the biggest problem overall. And then, of course, there's just layers and layers of this to where the money is used for things that nobody wants to be worked on, that no American taxpayer would say, yes, that's something that's going to help, like we talked about, the transgender mice, but many other examples too.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
Anyone can follow. It takes something special to be an original, which is why the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV arrives with new ways of surrounding you in luxury, including the ultra-wide 48-inch panoramic display and the multi-sensory Lincoln Rejuvenate experience. A true original never stops evolving. So meet the 2025 Navigator, the original that's all new and better than ever. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Lincoln and Navigator are trademarks of Ford or its affiliates.
Jif peanut butter. It's that jiffing good, it doesn't really need advertising. So instead, enjoy the calming sounds of the ocean. Jif. Ooh, it's that jiffing good. Get your Jif at Jif.com.
PMS, pregnancy, menopause. Being a woman is a lot. Ollie supports you and yours with expert solutions for every age and life stage. They just launched 2 new products exclusively at Walmart. Period Hero combats bloat, mood swings, and more during PMS. And Balance Perimeno to support hormonal balance, mood, and metabolism during perimenopause. Grab yours at Ollie.com. Ollie! These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Yeah, unfortunately, there seems to be so many examples. That's really interesting, sort of how the grant keeps folding over and going over. You know, before I let you go, too, what do you make of the incredible resistance that Elon Musk has faced? I mean, just recently they had the sort of Tesla takedown day, if you will, at hundreds of Tesla dealerships. These folks who are out there protesting, vilifying Elon Musk for doing a noble mission, as we're talking about. And then also his stock is, going down, people targeting people, just everyday citizens driving Teslas. Are you stunned at just all the vitriol and the anger? And also, quite frankly, even from the leadership side of Democrats, the silence, where they're just kind of turning a blind eye and not condemning some of these protests?
No, I'm not surprised at all, because I saw what happened over the last 5 years, and they were threatening to shut my business down unless everybody got an injection. So no, I'm not surprised that some of these people, there's a group of them that are just absolute lunatics that want absolute control. And if they don't get what they want, they will freak out. And then others that will turn a blind eye to that. So I think there's 2 groups here. There's the groups that are unorganized, that are just being made to feel like it's good to be violent. This is also something that we saw during the BLM riots and everything else. If people feel like it's virtuous to be violent, they will be violent and feel good about it. And you'll get these people that are borderline, seriously borderline psychotic, that will lash out and do these things. And they know that they're putting people's lives in risk by empowering those people, but they do it anyway. So that's the first group. And then the second group is what Elon's truly fighting against, what I believe is all these NGOs, the dark money, whatever you want to call it. So what our government has become is a trough for all of these NGOs that are essentially just, they're called non-governmental organizations, but what we found out is they're all getting federal money. So they're really government organizations, but they're classifying themselves as not. And then they can do whatever they want, whether that's get in illegal immigrants, develop apps to help illegal immigrants get in, shuffle money around to organize these protesters. Like there's been a lot that's been reported about these protesters basically just protesting from like 8 to 5 like a regular job. They have their scripts. They're told what to do. That's all driven by these NGOs. And I think we need to break apart these NGOs or cut off the source. And that's the only way to stop it. And that's what I really believe Elon's trying to do and the entire Trump administration is trying to do, is stop the source of funding of all these NGOs that are creating all of this chaos. The same NGOs that caused all the BLM riots and funded that as well. That is what needs to be taken down. And I think that's what the ultimate mission is.
Yeah. And also, obviously, the NGOs who's sending money to some of these NGOs. Obviously, there's a few big names that come out there. But you're right. It seems like they all have the same signs. They have the same T-shirts. Even on the college protests, they had the same little tents when they were setting up. You're right. It's like a big, big machine. And the Trump administration is definitely trying to crack down on that in so many ways. Well, Dr. Isaiah Hankel, this was so interesting. And everybody also be sure to check out overqualified.com to get some more details about all the great work that you are doing. And also everyone be sure to subscribe and share to this podcast. Dr. Hankel, really great to have you here. And thank you. This was so eye-opening. And I think we all learned so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on, Rita. I really appreciate it.
And everybody, I'll be back soon with another great edition of Protecting America. And of course, you can catch me every weeknight, 10 p.m. to midnight on the legendary WABC Radio. This is Rita Cosby, and thanks for all you do to protect America.